Hello and welcome to today's webinar, The Economic Windfall of Open Data for Government. Our speaker this morning is Safouen Rabah, Vice President of Product here at Socrata. We encourage your questions today throughout the webinar. The Q&A feature is located at the top of your screen under the Options drop-down menu. Again, thank you all for joining us today. Let's get started.
All right, thank you, Alida. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is a short webinar to introduce something we're really excited about, which is the Open Data Value Framework. So our goals for the webinar today is to really help you think more strategically about three very common questions we get from customers and people involved in the open data community, which is, what's my open data roadmap? What should be my approach to ROI? How do I prove ROI? And, what do we do now that we've put some data sets on the web? What next? What do we do now? How do we start extracting value from our investments and from our open data initiative overall? So we're going to share with you what we've learned along the way to help you answer these three questions. Perhaps just a little bit of an intro, and I think I've lost, there we go. So, everybody by now, if you've joined us, you're already at least thinking about open data if you're not already engaged in an open data initiative. First of all, congrats on taking the first steps. But everybody's talking about open data. A lot of smart people are, voicing all kinds of opportunities around open data. And the biggest opportunity for all, obviously, is for government to use open data to improve outcomes for people, to improve how it operates as an organization. And people like, McKinsey, who have studied open data extensively, really talk about this amazing global economic opportunity that they quantified at $3 to $5 trillion. Our goal today is to start unpacking some of the elements of success that would lead us down the path of open data success. So working with our customers, as you know, Socrata has been focused exclusively on open data since 2008. We have the privilege of working with thought leaders across the globe at every level of government, cities, counties, states, regions, country level agencies, federal agencies in the US, large and small not-for-profit and multilateral organizations. And what we've learned working in this community is that open data really has four dimensions of value. And it's first and foremost an innovation strategy. It's an innovation strategy that's powered by data and people, and it's designed to solve problems or affect outcomes in four areas. One, improving quality of life for residents or citizens. We also call that the citizen experience. Number two, something that we all share, I'm sure, is how do we use open data to stimulate economic activity? How do we create jobs? How do we help entrepreneurs create businesses? Over the last few years, we've seen an increasing trend towards using open data within government to improve the quality of decision-making and use data to literally make smarter decisions. And then finally, open data is not just data sets on the web, it's an entire data infrastructure from an IT perspective, if anything, and that data infrastructure can really help government organizations improve operational efficiency. So we're going to talk about the elements and use real-world examples, what we call stories of innovations or ideas in practice, to illustrate some of these dimensions, these four dimensions of value. We're going to start with the citizen experience, I like to call it, quality of life. And the reality is, every government organization has to contend with the expectations of a 21st century citizen. They're interacting with their government in ways that are not exactly as friendly and as modern as when they use the web or mobile devices or any of the services and apps that they use in their everyday life. And the key here is to use open data to improve that experience, to modernize the experience, and offer citizens and something that they can relate to that is in line with everything they use on a daily basis. So the idea here is, how do we shift citizen interaction to digital channels in a friendly way? How do we provide people with answers to questions they have? And these are not, complicated questions. They can be, when is the next bus coming? Where do I, how safe is my neighborhood? Which school should I enroll my kids in? And answers to those, daily questions are literally buried in government databases. And one, we need to get that data out. We need to understand the context, and we need to present that data in a modern interface that people are increasingly becoming accustomed to. So that's the first pillar of this model. So I'm going to share with you some examples. If you think of government services as this wide array of services covering pretty much every facet of life, one of the key areas where we focus and where we and our customers put a lot of effort is, how do we amplify that experience? How do we take 311 information about broken streetlights and graffiti and potholes and present that information in a way that allows people to understand it, to relate to it based on where they live, and how do we create an app that wraps around every government service that a city or a county or a state provides to its residents. Another example is Montgomery County. They took all their financial information, starting with their budget data, and built a very friendly app that surfaces answers to questions about the budget. I'm hoping to squeeze a live demo of a couple of these examples for you so you can see this in action. But the whole idea is to take information that was perhaps delivered as PDFs. Government finances, certainly the budget, is something that is incredibly hard to understand if you're a resident in a city. And the idea here is to take that information and put it in people's hands and wrap it in an experience that most people can relate to. Another great example, in addition to amplifying government services, one of the key initiatives that we and our customers are engaged in is, comes from this really simple realization. Millions of people use consumer web apps every day. These are Zillows of the world, Google, Yelp, and every other consumer app that we have on our phones and on our desktops. And the idea here is, in addition to putting data on open data portals, in addition to creating government apps that people can interact with, what can we do to take this data literally and surface that data through the apps that millions of people already use every day? And one of the great examples comes to us from one of our customers, the City and County of San Francisco. They're taking their restaurant inspection data, mapped it to a standard that Yelp created, and that data now surfaces in the Yelp experience where we think it's actually most useful to the broadest number of people. So this is just an example that illustrates a very, very important idea, which is the integration of government open data with the consumer web. How do we make that absolutely seamless, and how do we build those data pipelines into the consumer web so we increase the reach and ultimately the value of this data? So those are three examples of this first pillar, which is all about improving quality of life and enhancing the citizen experience. The second one has to do with governments using their own data to make better decisions. This is not a new concept. This is something that's been evolving literally over decades. And the idea that we would like to communicate as part of this framework is, it's actually not enough to put data out into the public domain. There is a tremendous amount of value that can come from using this data to visualize problems in a new way, to measure performance and measure outcomes on all the key performance goals that any government organization has, and finally to use this data to engage the public in the process of affecting these outcomes, communicating what's being done to increase usage of public transit, communicating what's being done to make the environment better. Everything that we're doing can be visualized, can be measured, and can be used to engage citizens or residents in a city in an outcome-oriented conversation using data. So I'm going to share with you a couple of examples. One of the best examples that I really like is from New York City. A group of people that the New York Times called the Mayor's Geek Squad looked at, this is kind of the analytics group in New York City. They had the problem that many cities have, which is some restaurants illegally dump cooking oil in the sewage system, and these sewers get clogged up, and it's a very expensive proposition to fix, kind of the aftermath of that. So in the kind of the old way, a city would send inspectors to all these restaurants and do, a lot of like field level investigation to uncover who is doing this. New York City used a different approach. They said, well, wait a second, let's use our own data to try and visualize this problem in a different way. So they took multiple data sources, location of restaurants, older 311 requests about or tickets about clogged sewers, and they layered this public information, and just by looking at this through data, they were able to basically eliminate 95% of restaurants and focus on the 5% who were likely culprits in this kind of cooking oil dumping scheme. So they were able to focus their inspectors on that 5% of restaurants, and they effectively solved the problem in record time with a lot less cost, and ultimately with better outcomes by using data in a smart way to understand and solve an urban problem. Another example comes to us from Edmonton in Canada. They're engaged in open data. They have been for a number of years. They're actually one of the best programs out there in terms of open data maturity. And they too have realized that they can use the same data to support a performance program that communicates to residents in Edmonton how well they're doing along multiple quality of life dimensions, from transportation to livability to in the environment. This, what you're seeing here is a screenshot of a live dashboard that I hope I can show to you in a few minutes, that communicates what's going on in the city, that invites people to kind of drill down on anything they care about, and then they created this closed loop so that their citizens can see something and can interact with the city about that, whatever it is that they care about, such as how many potholes are being filled. The third pillar of value in our value framework has to do with creating jobs and enabling entrepreneurs to build businesses on top of open data. And this has been a shared desire. I'm sure everyone on our webinar has thought about this, has been involved in discussions about how do we use open data to create innovation that leads to economic impact. And what has happened over the years is a number of, open data developers, civic hackers, have graduated from these hackathons, these weekend events where we look at some data and find an interesting problem to solve and build an app. Some of those have graduated to really taking that weekend project and turning it into a real business. So I'm going to share with you a couple of examples of very, very successful businesses that literally would not exist were it not for the wide availability of open data, the wide availability of APIs, and all this data infrastructure that is lowering the transaction costs for all these entrepreneurs to build these businesses. Now, the other advantage is that these businesses indirectly or sometimes very directly help affect the other outcomes we care about, such as improving quality of life in the cities where they operate, or helping governments reduce costs by literally offloading some of these services to these companies. So a great example is actually a Seattle-based company called Porch.com. We're very proud of the Porch story. They started from nowhere, and in a year, September 2013 is when Porch started. Now they already have 200 employees. They've raised $33 million in venture funding. And what they do is they collect and aggregate data about all the home renovation projects that happen in the cities where they operate. This is public data. This is data that some of you are publishing today. So they collect that data, they wrangle it in a, for lack of a better word, and then they provide a service both for homeowners as well as private contractors in the home renovation space. And it's a marketplace that allows people to find these contractors more efficiently, and you rely on the historical project data to choose the contractor that makes sense. So a great example of a business that literally would not exist without open data. On the other side of the country, in New York City, comes another great example of a company called Pipe Comply. This is a company that helps property managers and real estate developers manage compliance-related issues. So if you own a building or you manage a building, there are a myriad of things you need to worry about. Are the elevators up to code? Is the water system, is the heating system? Are there any hazards around the building that you need to fix? So all of these issues are, you can be traced to government systems and government databases and inspectors kind of making sure that everything is up to code. So Pipe Comply takes that data, organizes it in a useful experience, and then provides a service to property managers so they can stay on top of compliance, and they can do so much more efficiently than they could before. The government data is helping create a much more efficient ecosystem in this micro vertical around property management and compliance management. So a fantastic example of yet another business that graduated from an idea to a funded company that's creating jobs and that's creating real innovation in an area that was perhaps kind of archaic and paper-based in the past. The last pillar of value in our model has to do with operational efficiency. Now, operational efficiency comes from a number of areas for example, pushing data to Yelp. We're providing a service to millions of consumers at literally no cost to the government. By helping companies like Pipe Comply and Porch use data to create these new services, we're also helping governments lower costs because a lot of these interactions are now happening outside of government, and government is switching to a role of a platform and providing data for people who can turn that data into something useful. A great example, I'm sure you've all experienced it, is maybe 5-10 years ago, every city, every county, every transit authority used to have to create all these applications that tell people where to go, where the buses are coming, how to kind of use the transit system. And a lot of government organizations realize that it's actually faster, cheaper, and ultimately better to just provide the data about the transit system and let companies like Google or Embark or others that specialize in transit information take that data and turn it into a service that helps people navigate around the city. A great example is from Oregon. The Secretary of State in the state of Oregon, one of the many things that they do is manage a database of trademarks. Kind of the traditional IT way of doing things is to build a custom application to take this information and make it available to those who need it. These are specifically businesses and lawyers, etc., who need access to that data. And instead of doing that, they realized that they could use their open data platform and put the data on the open data platform, which did two things for them. It avoided this complex custom development project and saved them $500,000. It also increased the reach of the data significantly and helped them turn that entire process into a self-service process. Speaking of self-service, we're using our good friend Jay Knapp, and this is self-service is a big area where open data can help governments reduce costs. And these are the costs of disclosure. So, for example, in Chicago, the Department of Public Health, they've been publishing their data on Chicago's open data portal. And as a result, when they did their open data yearly report, they realized that they were able to reduce requests for freedom of information by 65% using proactive disclosure on the web that helps people get to this information on their own. They can get to it anytime they want. And if we build an experience that helps people actually understand this data, then they're getting real answers to their questions, and they don't have to send an official request to the city that then needs to be managed and followed up on, etc. So these are just some examples of how open data as a technology infrastructure, as well as a way to shift citizen interactions to digital channels and enable self-service, can help reduce costs. And this is important to all of you because all of you are engaged in open data initiatives, and at the same time, you're also trying to find ways to make that program sustainable and prove ROI in your own organization. So these are just examples to kind of stimulate your thinking about how do we use this open data strategy to affect outcomes in all these four areas: citizen experience, data-driven decision-making, gaining real operational efficiencies, and finally creating the fuel that supports entrepreneurs and developers in building new businesses and creating jobs in your community. So I think we're doing well on time. I might pause here and first of all, this is an introduction to a framework that we've developed. This is a framework that's documented in a white paper that we're also making available to you. In that white paper, we go into details. My colleagues at Socrata have developed a kind of a methodology, or at least a conversation that any of you can have with us about how do we take this framework and apply it to our own open data initiative. We're happy to have that conversation with you. My colleague Brian here is going to invite you to take a poll on WebEx. And this is a simple invitation. If you'd like to talk to us further about how to take these concepts and apply them, we're happy to have that conversation with you. And while you do that, I'm going to invite all of you to use the WebEx Q&A functionality to send us your questions. We've got 5 minutes left, and we're happy to take any and all of your questions.
We have a question from one of our attendees. They'd like to know, when you're getting started in an open data program, which pillar should you emphasize first? Which pillar should you give the most attention to when you're just getting started?
I think that's a great question. So let's put the pillars as our backdrop here. So as we talk about them, we're able to use that. you know, what we've seen is that different people start in different places, and often they operate along all 4 dimensions at once. As in, every dimension is not there's no kind of binary outcome. It's always a maturity curve along every dimension. And in this model, we identified kind of 5 big things an organization should at least consider when thinking about citizen experience or operational efficiency. And believe me, these are big things. It almost doesn't matter where to start. I think the best advice that we've been able to kind of glean from our experience is the most important thing is to look at open data through the prism of the challenges you have in your organization and the problems you're trying to solve. I think where some organizations at least really miss the big opportunity is by treating open data as a standalone initiative that happens outside of their key processes and key initiatives. And you have operational efficiency initiatives going on right now, IT consolidation initiatives, modernizing your data integration infrastructure and replacing that kind of old infrastructure with modern APIs. You have initiatives to build apps as we speak. You have initiatives to probably use data to measure and report performance. All of those things, in our experience, are going on in every organization at the same time. So we invite you to take kind of an iterative approach, not tackle everything at once, but literally where you start is not all that important. You can start anywhere.
Thank you. We've had a couple of requests come in, Seth. They would like to know if you can show a real-time example of a municipality using Socrata's platform, and what do the cities interact with also? What do they see when they're interacting? Can you show us something
Yeah,
of that
absolutely.
nature?
I'd be happy to.
And while Safouen is pulling that up, I can answer another question that's come in. If somebody wants to know if this presentation will be available on YouTube, we will email to all attendees and to everyone who registered an on-demand video that you can share with your colleagues and watch as many times as you'd like. We'll have that out to you by the end of day tomorrow.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so let's see some real-world examples. So one of the things we talked about was amplifying these government services, right? Modernizing the citizen experience. So if you live in Montgomery County, and last year you would have had to go to a bunch of PDFs to understand the budget. The budget is a very important piece of information for a lot of people because it communicates government's priorities. Now, Montgomery County is using Socrata's Open Budget app. This is part of our platform to manage the flow of budget information and to communicate that to their constituents, both the capital budget and the operating budget. So if you want to know, for example, what the budget is for public safety, or where does the money come that funds all these public safety programs, or how much money is being allocated for the police in Montgomery County, what program does it go to? You can see all that information in the context of this really very accessible, beautiful app that shows people what's going on with budget information right down to the program level, and really allows them to understand their government's priorities at any given time as they're communicated through the budget. Now, an app like this not only enhances the citizen experience and allows them to understand the budget often for the first time, it's actually a great tool for information sharing within the organization itself. Often when these apps go live, it's the very first time that all the different departments actually have a place to go to get this information. That's number two. Number three, on the operational efficiency side, now we're automating the flow of this data. We're replacing old manual intensive ways of creating these artifacts that people have to produce, quarter after quarter, year after year, and we're replacing them with an automated process. So we're hitting three dimensions of our value framework with an app like Open Budget. We talked about the maturity of the open data ecosystem. You can see on the Socrata app marketplace a bunch of our own apps, but more importantly, third-party apps like Recollect. This is a fantastic app that also hits on a couple of our values you mentioned. This is an app that allows citizens to opt in, so they get notifications when garbage is about to be collected, when there's leaves are about to be collected, when there's any change to any scheduled service whatsoever. It's a great communication tool. It's a very resident-friendly tool because they get notifications on their mobile devices through text, etc. And it's a way to cut costs for that city because now they're using an app like that to save costs and prevent, all kinds of overtime and unnecessary follow-up due to missed schedules. So these are just two examples. I have more, but I'm getting the signal from Alida that I should wrap it up. I really invite you to go check out Edmonton City Dashboard. We referenced we referenced it through a screenshot. You can actually go interact with it and see what Edmonton is doing to communicate performance data and allow people to not only understand what's going on and see their progress towards their goals, but also relate this information to where they live and what they care about, and be able to talk with the city about any other feedback they might have on improving and affecting that outcome.
Thank you so much, Steph. This has been a great presentation. I wanted to let all of our attendees know that you can see more examples of what Steph has shown here today by going to our webinars page at Socrata.com. We've had a few other webinars specifically around these performance measurement dashboards and also around the Open Budget app itself. For those of you who had specific questions about the Budget app, we will be reaching out to you directly to answer those. Also, if you have any questions we did not get to today, please email webinars@Socrata.com, and we will answer those questions with you or in a follow-up blog post. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and Seth, thank you for this presentation.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone. I hope it was useful, and look forward to speaking with you again.